Okay, hey, so this is my second time recording this, and the first time I ran out of storage really fast after like 16 minutes, so we're gonna try to keep it tight. I started the last video by saying that I don't really have anything planned to say, but as it turns out, I do. Always a lot brewing on my mind, but it's kind of random. So the theme of this one is going to be about literature, and recently I think I've been very literary, which is something I super appreciate, and I'm grateful that I'm able to invest time in it and stuff. And I surpassed my Goodreads goal of this year. My goal was 20 books, and I just finished the 21st, which was a rereading of In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I wanted to see if it would be just as emotionally resonant as it had been the first time I read it, February 2020, which was right after I had kind of experienced things in the tradition on the road towards some of the things Machado writes about. And at the time it was just it just knocked the wind out of me. So much so that I went to Green Apple Books near Golden Gate Park in San Francisco and purchased a hardcover copy and just to have an artifact of it. And I think not so much this time, but I can really appreciate the artistry deeply. It does make me sad, kind of the way that the resonance of a piece of art is just a vehicle for amplifying our own experiences and things like that. I think that fact of it makes me sad. I went to see Among the Dead by Hansel Jung, which is a play that was put on by the Asian American Theater Project at my school. And again, I was just knocked off my feet. It was like a work of theater that made me understand theater. And I'm not, I am a novice to theater, but I have worked on a production before with the same group. And even through that, my understanding of theater was not as a mode of communication, but as a bonding exercise because of the monumental effort that theater takes, and and the time spent in it. But when I went to see Among the Dead, just every point of the play, every topic that it covered, not to mention the artistry of it, but every topic was so thoroughly enmeshed with themes I had been thinking about, themes I had been processing, right? And it just hit so hard. And it was beautiful, it was stunning, but it was so heavy. And again, it made me understand theater. So, right after I watched it, I came home and I wrote in my little Word document that I've been kind of cultivating that what a joy, what a privilege it is to be able to use live art to process your own emotions, right? But that just kind of begs the question of who a piece of art is meant for, because a lot of people may just come to this show and see the artistry and the beauty of it and the and kind of the technical mastery of the story and the presentation of the craft and the emotional aspect of it, but there will be no resonance. And that's fine, right? And that's part of the broad appeal of theater. But I just, wow, to be so hit, right, to have such a heart chord to be just played, was definitely super powerful for me. So anyways, I went to Green Apple Books and I bought a copy of In the Dream House, and it's been important to me to make tangible some of these influences that I've had in my life. And a project I've been kind of slowly working on for the better part of a year has been creating this sampler of just short form works that have deeply influenced me. And kind of on my short list are, of course, It Will Look Like a Sunset by Kelly Sundberg, first published in Guernica, which I'm also writing an essay on this week for a class, which I'm so grateful and thankful to be able to do. I want to put on I Hate Women by Molly Brodak, which is a poem. I think it's only available on her, her husband, Blake Butler's website. Speechless. Very beautiful. And I think it's been profoundly effective to the way I write too. Reading it changed how I write. And that's like what I want to create the sampler about, and to keep tangible, like what has impacted me. And then of course some of Larissa Pham's works, I think, would definitely be on there as well. Just like slowly collecting so I can make this collection, and it's really important for me to make the collection as soon as possible before I start losing some of that, because, and this is a theme that I've been building up and exploring and thinking about writing about, but the idea that like we lose so much to time, right? Stuff that was so emotionally resonant for us even a few years ago has lost its luster, and that doesn't, and like to our present selves, we often think of that as like, oh, we were childish, or we were foolish, or I've outgrown it, I'm a new person, I'm a better and more moral person for the growth that I've had. But I think a lot of growth is neutral, right? Like it is simply an artifact of time. A lot of growth is positive, but that doesn't mean that your relation to your younger self's relation to a work was any less valid or any less beautiful or sacred than your current set of preferences. And I think I'm personally very sad and like saddened by the ways those preferences change over time, and the inability to hold on to things that have brought you joy. And so I've been trying to explore this in my work recently, but that's also why I want to make this sampler, is to have a reminder of like the works that speak to you. And I don't think that a work will always serve you for your whole life, right? But like it's just, I don't know, it's becoming extremely important to me to like explore it in that way. Yeah, I don't know. So but the main thing that I wanted to talk about today is the 22nd book of the year, which is Alexander Chee's, or hopefully Alexander Chee's How to Write an Autobiographical Novel. And I've been kind of snacking on it today, I would say. And recently, I mean, it's just been, and if I really want to take stock of like how this time period has been for me, I mean, we just had a Taurus full moon in a lunar eclipse, no less. And it was totally harrowing for me, I think, like very intense. And I've also been reading this book, which I don't know when I first came across it, but I've just been reinvigorated to really dedicate myself to reading it after rediscovering it in a bookstore in Campbell, which is about a little suburb south of San Jose. I thought it was a craft book, and I think in many ways it is. I'm on a chapter about craft, about like writing and lessons that she learned from Annie Dillard. But I kind of want to focus in, and I think some of the essays in the collection were also published elsewhere, so I've also read some of Chee's works. Most of my exposure to his works has been through my current class that I'm taking, in which I read his essay Girl, which explores like kind of gender, and an essay called Mr. and Mrs. B about William and Patricia Buckley. I was reading the second essay in the collection today, The Querent, and in the same way that Among the Dead made me like understand theater, The Querent made me understand tarot. I'm very much as I hate to admit it, I'm very much an engineer in many ways. And I seek a sort of optimization that may be at odds at times with my politics, I think, or just it's a contradiction that through time I will probably ultimately resolve. But I naturally or have been, you know, as I've grown up, to seek a certain kind of optimization. And so tarot as an art form, as like a practice, has never really made sense to me, because I feel that like whenever I seek like psychic services and such, I often seek like, you know, the best, right? The most psychic of them all, right? Like the ones with 22,000 reviews on Etsy. And the intimate practice of tarot, of reading for another person, of like maybe even confirming one's psychic or spiritual abilities, is just not something that I super like understand, I guess. But I read in The Querent, so Alexander Chi used to be a professional tarot reader, and he writes about how tarot is about the possibilities of the present. It is not about telling the future. And the main power of the tarot is what you see in it, not as the reader, but as the receiver of the reading, how you try to shape that story onto yourself and wear it, right? How you try to wear it. And I think, you know, a lot of people can say that a lot of different kinds of art forms are, you also receive them, but you receive them with distance because they're explicitly about other things. No matter how relatable they are, you can always distance yourself. But tarot is like a skin, right? Like you are trying to mold it to your life, and if there are kind of frictions or anything there, like, I don't know, like it just made me understand the ways that you can use tarot to, like, she goes into how like tarot like has a lot of similar qualities to literature, in that like there are archetypes, there are plot points and things like that. There are interactions between different minor and major arcana. But I think like the idea of like the point of tarot being the possibilities of the present, and like the interesting analysis being how the receiver slots themselves in, is so interesting. And in that, there's a lot of different possibilities and potentialities that are like offered in that, you know. And that, like reading The Querent today, like that is what made me want to buy a tarot deck for the first time, because I don't necessarily think of myself as super like psychic or anything, but it made me like want to kind of read, and not necessarily for myself. In fact, I actually want to read for creating like fictive imaginations and investing more in narratives and things like that, and reading for like literature or like literary characters or representations. But it just made me like really interested in, at any time, parapsychically generating a new plot, and then seeing in what ways does this interact with my current path. And that just like really spoke to me. But anyways, I like really wanted to buy a tarot deck, so I was going to go to Eastwind Bookshop, which is the biggest metaphysical shop in the US, and it's just kind of 5 miles away from where I live. But then I went on Etsy, and it just like was so like washed over with like this psychic pain of like an overwhelm towards like, you know, like getting my own tarot deck and imbuing myself with this kind of potentiality. And oh shit, in The Querent, Alexander Chee writes about how like you're supposed to wait for someone else to gift you a tarot deck instead of buying one yourself, and that he personally like disregarded this and what happened therein. And I don't think that I will buy a tarot deck anytime soon, you know, after that experience of what I just had, being like kind of just experiencing like a stoppage. But I finally understand it now, you know, and that's like so powerful to me. Like I can't even explain to you like how powerful it is to understand, you know, like kind of like why people do this, but also like what power that has and how it speaks to people and how it can like enlarge and expand your mind and things like that. And I was just so taken by that. But yeah, whenever I get a bit of time to myself, and right now I'm on Thanksgiving break, I've been able to like spend more time doing like restorative and like spiritual kind of practices and like trying to realign myself. And I feel really grateful that I've been able to do that and use like nutrition and whatever, writing as like excavation and exploration and starting off points for like doing habits that like imbue me with purpose and like that like feel like I'm doing the work that is necessary to like buoy myself, right, like as a real person. And I think that's like so special. And engaging with the literature, whatever, right, I'm about to like head to the library probably to write a paper on maternity, but I feel very lucky to be able to like do that and explore and stuff. And yeah, it's a gift, it really is. So yeah, I hope you're well, and I will try my best to link some of the things that I talked about in the description. But yeah.